Law enforcement officers, sources rather, telling Fox News that Richard Matt was shot and killed by CBP agents from the Department of Homeland Security. Bo, I want to go to you first because I want you to help us visualize how this went down. 3:45, law enforcement sees Matt, and by 4 o'clock, he is dead. This is near Lake Titus in Franklin County. How do you envision this all going down?
Well, let's start from the beginning because that's where, when he comes out of when he came out of the sewer hole there, somebody wasn't there. That lady wasn't there. So now the whole plan of escape has been shot into the wind. First thing you're going to do is you look at each other. Feet don't fail me now. You start running. Get out of it. Get away from where there's homes and all that. Now they're in the woods. Now they don't know what their escape is because their plan has blown.
Well, but let me stop you there. If they didn't know how did they survive this long with such a botched plan? Do you think there was a plan B? How did they know the area? They got help apparently from at least 2 officers, two corrections officers. So how could they have managed to evade law enforcement this long?
This investigation is ongoing. They just locked up one of the correction guys with the frozen meat and all that. Just happens to be one of those cabins out there where the correction guys used to go hunting. So one thing was that there was weapons in there. The other thing, there was possibly canned goods in there. So possibly they went right to that cabin. But they were in that confines. When you have 1,000 men and women tracking you down there, they couldn't move 10 feet without hiding, and they had to move at night, and they figured, let's stay put, and they were right in that area. Remember the sightings in Pennsylvania? Hogwash. They never was in Pennsylvania. What it was all about was them hiding, and then all of a sudden, today, someone spotted them near the campground, call went out to 911. They must have been very close together. The one must have bolted while the other one was getting shot. Now you got to remember, you got guys conversion on them. You don't know if they have weapons. You got to be very cautious.
We're showing the audience now a map of the area. You can see all of that. Dannemora is where the Clinton Correctional Facility was. So all of this area, after almost a month on the run, not very far from where it originally began. And Mike Baker, I want to go to you because apparently a unit of Homeland Security just recently called in for this. Were the ones who took down Richard Matt. Do you think that it was that kind of expertise that was needed to sort of to close in on them this rapidly? Because it feels like this was, it's just, again, I'm just struggling, and I think people at home are struggling as to why it took so long.
Well, I mean, I think Bo's right. And I find myself saying that a lot. I always find myself saying, I think Bo's right. But the bottom line is these guys were improvising. And so luck was going to run out. And the Border Patrol tactical teams are very good, well-trained, but so are a lot of the other law enforcement units that were up there involved. There were 1,000 of them involved in this 3-week-long effort. So part of it just comes down to, and this is going to sound wrong, but it's sort of luck of the draw as to who gets to encounter these individuals. And they did the absolute right thing because, as Bo pointed out, you don't know whether they're armed or not. Oftentimes, the complexity of this entire effort is very reminiscent of the 1962 breakout from Alcatraz by Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers. And you look at that, and that also ended up relatively close. They never did find the bodies, but the assumption was they really basically never made it to Angel Island. So a lot of times when people get out, if they're able to escape, it tends to get resolved close to home, as it were.
I want to bring in, joining us from Miami, we do have Judge Alex Ferrer. He's a former Florida Circuit Court judge. Judge Alex, a lot of questions surrounding the help that these inmates got, how they were able to escape, and even with the botched plan. There's so much that we want to know. Where are we going to go from here legally?
Well, of course, we have the prosecution of the civilian employee, the woman who had a relationship with one of them. And she's been arrested. Now we have a new prison guard, actually, who was arrested as well for providing them with tools. And the investigation is going to continue to see if there was anybody else who provided any material support. The employee, whose name I don't remember if it's Mitchell, I believe it's Mitchell. She's
Joyce
actually,
Mitchell.
Joyce Mitchell. She's very lucky that they haven't killed anybody, because otherwise, she could be facing felony murder charges, depending on the laws in New York, how they're written. So the best thing that could happen for her is for them, the remaining one, to be taken into custody or killed as well before any other harm is done. I know they shot at somebody today passing by, and that could have been a tragedy for her as well as that driver.
You know, Randy Zellin, to that point, you're a criminal defense attorney. It feels like the charges that we've heard so far against Joyce Mitchell are relatively tame compared to the outrage and the threat that this posed to the general public. Do you think a deal could have already been cut with her to some degree to get her to cooperate?
She certainly has incentive to do that. This is not exactly a woman who would be well suited for incarceration. She's probably never been in trouble before. So she is the ideal candidate for cooperation. But the best candidates for cooperation, one of them, unfortunately, right now is dead because dead men tell no tales. And I do think that as much as Mr. Sweat might not have much of an incentive to live because he was looking at life without parole, if he's caught, he could be a wealth of information to assist law enforcement to know exactly what went on, who was involved, and what in God's name is going on behind that wall. And then maybe he'll at least have a shot at getting 3 square again.
You think you agree with that, Eric?
I do. The prison guards the prosecution needs to find these guys, keep the one alive, find out what happened. Try to give him some type of incentive because, just like Randy was saying, he's going to face life without at this point regardless. But they need to find out exactly what happened, how they got out, how they escaped, how they got these tools, how did they know the maze between the corridors and how they got that map, because to get out of that prison, they had to have prior knowledge. It wasn't luck of the draw.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
They had to have prior knowledge of how to get out.